Hi, okay. So for the second presentation this week, what we want to go over is really drill down a little bit specifically into the enterprise systems themselves. So we'll go ahead and pull this up. Um, if I can get to it here. Um, you know, we talked a little bit about how the trends are um, there. There's functionality that you kind of learn over time. And there are companies that build their skill sets around knowing how particular parts of the business operate. So there are people that have done HR, let's say, for decades and decades. They know the ins and outs of it. They know when people are trying to do some of those functions, how the flow works the best. And so they will create software that really maps to that and takes a lot of that learning and builds it into that particular function. So while having the data available, through um, uh, OMSs and all the data source and all this is useful, what you really need are some applications that are you get the most value in those systems. And while you want ultimate flexibility within your IT system, in your IT architecture, there's some things that every business does. And they aren't horribly different between each business. There's some variation, but they're not horribly different, and they're just key elements of common functions that the business has to do. And there are ways to do it. I mean, accounting, there's regulated ways to do some of these things, and how you flow through that for your accounts and your company is going to be important. So what winds up happening is we wind up with these enterprise systems, which we'll talk about a little bit here. Um, and these kind of grew up out of the initial uh, uh, implementation of computers and software over top of the information for a company. Um, the first things that they want to be able to do is manage payroll, right? And just do that automatically. They want to be able to manage their supplies and do that sort of where the inventory, manage inventory automatically. They want to be able to keep track of customers and sort of manage all that stuff. It's people are handwriting stuff down and they move on, you lose contacts, all that stuff. So eventually, these things that are kind of common across all of the businesses develop industries built up around those particular functions. Those are legacy systems. So initially, you start out with this IBM 370. Every big business buys this 370. They put in, and it's got functions to do all this stuff. But it can't do everything well, and that's what you wind up with. At the same time that the IBM is becoming high in terms of maintenance cost, inflexible, integration obstacles, they're not doing everything well. And so what happens is this enterprise systems business emerges. And these are new systems that emerge to address really key strategic areas of the business without holding the entirety of the company's information hostage to a particular vendor. So now you can go in and you can say, I want to manage my enterprise resources and my supplies and all this kind of stuff with this company because I think they do it really well, but I don't want them necessarily running my supply chain, or I don't want them necessarily running my customer list. And so you can pick and choose. And that's what happens when we've kind of wound up with that in three main areas. One is enterprise resource planning, second is supply chain management, and third is customer relationship management. And so those enterprise systems tend to be developed with standards that can allow them to integrate with the others. And together they run the enterprise operations and integrate your core business processes. Usually when you implement these, you'll have a third party come in and implement them. And the reason is that it's a very strategic implementation. You want to do this well. You want to have this work very efficiently for your company. But it's common. I mean, all companies do it. And so there are people that know how to do this really well. To train your own people up to learn how to implement one of these systems, probably a waste of your money. So, usually it's third party. They'll often come in and modify some of your business processes to make sure, there's a balance between utilizing the software most effectively and making sure culturally your business processes are what they need to be. And there's some balance there because some things you may do that really aren't that smart, and some things you might do because they're core to your business. And so the software will have to change to accommodate that. For the most part, it's a mix of both. Um, so it'll include a redesign of business process, not those that gives you the positive advantage, but those which are inefficient. It may change how people perform their jobs, hopefully more effectively. And third-party skills are really needed to cover all those areas. I'm not going to go deep into each one of these. Your book does, but enterprise resource planning, what you're talking about there is basically all of your internal applications, your external business processes, and your links to your external business partners. It'll do some stuff with supply chain. Your manufacturing process will be managed through here. Your financial processes will be managed through here. Human resources, budgeting, sales, customer service. A lot of those things can be managed by an ERP. Now, an ERP like SAP, Oracle, JD Edwards, they will typically try to tell you they could do everything, including the HR and stuff. But really, what you want to do is have an ERP that focuses on your core internal business processes, and I'm just kind of let it do that. But instead of having to automate all that stuff yourself, you buy this application, you put it in. They've done all that stuff. They know how to map processes. They know how people typically do these jobs. When you select it, look at one that's targeting your company's particular requirements and manage them against those. So if you don't need to do everything, then pick the things that you do need to do and manage and decide strengths and weaknesses on the various ERPs based on that. Whenever you do it, obviously you get yourself a hands-on demonstration of it so you can make sure it's what is going to work. And then calculate the overall total cost of ownership of having this thing. So it's probably likely that you need to have one if you're a big business, but which one you choose and the cost of ownership of each one of those things should be carefully looked at. There's some success factors to implementing this. Number one, focus on your business process and requirements. Make sure you're not just implementing an IT system. Make sure you're implementing processes that will manage the information for the business most effectively. Get that achievable and measurable ROI, so return on this investment needs to be good. Get yourself a strong project management team that can approach this and secure the commitment of all the resources that are going to be required to actually implement. So this isn't the kind of thing that you're running your business and someone else can go set it up and then plop it in. It's got to be sort of, since this involves your business processes, you got to have people integrated from your business helping to develop how this is going to be implemented and how the processes are going to change. And if you don't have the project management team in place and the sponsorship in place to get their time to do it, then you won't be successful. And that goes to obtaining the strong and continuing commitment of senior executives. Prepare up front, take the time, go through the thorough training and change management, because when you implement this thing, if you don't get the value out of it, if you don't train correctly, right? And otherwise people will spend a long time after the project's implemented and done, everyone leaves, and if people are doing it wrong, you're not going to get the value out of it. Remember, it's not a slam dunk just because it's vended software. You're changing information processes and flows, and this is just the mechanism to do that. The second one is supply chain management. So ERP does some of this, but you really want to focus here on supply chain. These people know how to manage flow of material, data, and payments up and down first tier, second tier, third tier suppliers most effectively. It manages procurement, sourcing, manufacturing, storage, inventory control, all those things that are important to supply chain. Reduces the uncertainty and variability of it so that you get good forecasting when you need material, when you need to buy material, when you need to put orders in for new material, how long it's going to take. Manages the lead times so you can track all that stuff. Doesn't get you stuck, where you're waiting for a part and you can't get your own product out the door because you're waiting. Those are the things that SCM does really well. Material flow, the information flow all up and down this chain, and the financial flow of making sure that the payments to the participants get managed at the appropriate time. So typically you're going to have a day plus 30 or day plus 60 kind of payment system. This thing will automatically manage when those invoices have to be sent for all the different suppliers that you have across the baseline. You don't have to have people doing all that stuff. The system can do it. And it manages the back office element supply. So arranging the payment method, doing your check in stock if you need it, arranging for shipments, right? Because you put all those companies into the actual setup there. The insurance of anything can be automatically set up, based on the companies that you build a relationship with. Any in-house production can be managed, contact customers, and returns. That's a key one, your reverse supply chain. How do you manage all those returns coming back? That's a tricky thing for people to figure out. It's a lot easier actually to sell than it is to take back. CRM is the third one I want to talk through. This is customer relationship management. So think about, now we're not actually just executing the creation of the product, but this is like, how do we get that demand signal? CRM is really good at that. It manages your customers. It understands, does the analytics on them. It looks at, how much of the share of wallet they have, that you have of them. What's the profitability for each different customer type, which allows you then to focus your investments in terms of sales and such on the groups that are going to give you the most value. Okay, so it allows you to segmentize and manage the customers in order to maximize overall what they call the CLV, the dollar value over long-term relationship, customer lifetime value. Think about how Honda does this kind of, the Ernie car company. They get you in with a small car, right? Eventually, they do a good job with customer relationship. They bring in repairs and such. Like, hey, look at this one. It's a little bit big, but it's a little bit nicer. Due to your station in life, this is probably the right thing. That's the kind of thing that you want the system to actually track. So here's the people that we should be addressing about this other kind of product. It automatically does a lot of that stuff. So here you got, your big guy, Salesforce.com, the big one now. SAP obviously is still out there in the space. And this is a separate system, but you need to share obviously a lot of this information, because the sales, who's buying what, how you're producing these products, what you think is going into these products, needs to be able to communicate with customer relationship. So you create a customer experience for each customer. You prevent the loss of customers, acquire new customers, upsell, like we were talking about, into better products, or cross-sell into additional products, adjacent kinds of things you might be interested in. The system can help you with all of that. Those are the things we wanted to talk about enterprise systems. So a little bit brief, but and your book goes into more detail on them. But I just want you to think through that, because just as we're implementing a whole bunch of systems that are going to be very particular to our particular business and our information needs, doesn't mean that we don't go out and leverage the best of breed for functions and capabilities that the industry is really good at. And that's what those enterprise systems are for.